Yeah. Just wait, man. It's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming, and then you're going to tell them you're busy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It seemed like the decision was just me saying yes, and then it wasn't.
I wonder what you'll find out down the road about that.
I have a feeling that some people I used to be affiliated with working are somehow involved and have sour grapes.
I think that sounds very likely.
Yeah. But
you know how like the inner clique of any business is. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's sorority-like or fraternity-like.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
I've got a really good question.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. And I was going to email him back, but maybe this would be just as good of a forum for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Jimmy Jams.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we've heard from him before.
Yeah.
I know we have. Actually, I've talked to him a bit. Seems like a cool person. He asked a question about case pricing.
Okay.
He says, we get our beef from one farm, 2 heads a week, and pay a flat cost for the whole animal plus slaughter. And he wants to know if he should price per the market value of the cuts, or would it be better for him to price lower? I think he's asking because he gets that low hanging carcass price. Like, because he buys in bulk, should he be pricing lower than market value? He says, I don't know which way to go since my cost on tenderloin is the same as an eye round.
Yeah.
So I've thought a lot about this. I'm sure you have.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go, and then I worked at a place that was whole carcass, and we would still. Well, you worked at the same place, and our prices dictated not scarcity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I think it's really tempting to give a discount, like, pass the discount along to the customer. It really is. But here's the way I see it. Right now, I'm the only person in my area for many, many miles, maybe hours of driving, that offers 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, prime lamb, certified organic, right? So I could charge whatever I want. But I oftentimes think about whether I should make
$2 million
it less expensive or more. Yeah, exactly. On one hand, I think I've got some products that are a little bit different. There's not a lot of people that eat lamb, and there's sure as shit not a lot of people that eat grass-fed lamb around here.
Yeah.
And so I think that I want to give it to them for a lower price, a more attractive price, to get them to try it.
Well, that's your ground. I would just have because the flavor profile is going to be there and all that.
Mm-hmm. But there's another part of me sometimes that thinks I'm not always going to be the only one. Mm-hmm. There's going to be somebody else, and then there's going to be a third and a fourth person that offer this product here. And they may come along and have better marketing than me, and they might set a higher price by claiming that they are super premium above my premium. So I try to fine line between selling myself short and pricing it to move to get people to try it. I really encourage bundles, so that people can get that really cheap price, but then get a lot of it.
Yeah.
Which obviously Jimmy James probably can't do. So, I don't know. I guess I try to land somewhere in the middle of that. I don't try to charge Seattle prices, but one way that I reference is the USDA has a suggested price table for items for certified organic and conventional farmers, and it gives kind of a national average of items for sale, and that's a really great reference when you're trying to find a baseline to start with.
Yeah. As far as like doing a flat price across the board for everything, that's what he was asking, right? Or no?
I think that was maybe one of his thoughts, like if he could do that or price it lower because he gets that low price.
Yeah. So that is one of the great things about buying whole carcasses, and that you're allowed that freedom to price accordingly, and you also have the option to grind everything or fill orders. It's also a delicate dance to make your case look vibrant, and you don't want to put, if you're getting whole carcasses, a lot of times you're going to break stuff, vacuum pack it, and then deal with how it pulling it out. Just, you're going to essentially turn your shop into a box shop, because you need to pull it as ready, kind of. Because you can't break down a whole carcass and put the whole thing in the case all at once. That being said, certain cuts I would offer for more value as your market dictates. People just, I think, genuinely aren't going to want to see eye round and tenderloin at the same price. Eventually, you're going to end up grinding that eye round, and then you're going to get a lot of assholes being like, well, why is it the same price?
Yeah, definitely. People are skeptical about low prices sometimes.
Yeah. And then there's the other effect. Like when I worked retail, we had charged like $49 a pound for 6-week dry aged porterhouses, and it wasn't good. It wasn't great quality. It was grass fed California, and there's a drought. But it was embarrassing to charge that much.
Sure.
I'd ring people up, and they would think they were getting like, oh, this is the best. And just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's the best,
Yeah, well, that's very true.
A hand job's a hand job if the result's the same.
That's what you should take away from this, Jimmy James.
Yeah.
That last part.
Yeah. I'm going to edit that out.
That may get edited. Yeah. Oops. I just sent a picture to Jimmy James, and I didn't mean to.
Oh, weird.
Let's work that. Let's.
But yeah, so I don't know. Do what your market will allow you to do. If you're selling out a ribeye every week, then maybe you could, you don't want to take advantage of your market. But if people are with whole carcass, that's a very big possibility. I would have people be like, I want 50 pieces of center cut tenderloin. Like, well, that's just not possible. I'm not going to say the phrase that's not sustainable, because everyone needs to get their piece or whatever. But if I could unload all my tenderloin to one customer at one time, I'd rather have that money in hand than
no kidding,
than tell them no or some bullshit just because I don't have it.
Yeah, another thing is, like, out there in the city, we could sell Terrace Major for $18.99 a pound, but I sure couldn't do that here. So some things, depending on what his market has going on, may be way below market value just to get them to eat it.
Yeah, and the Terrace Major is one of those cuts where it's like there's only 2 of them, and selling it for so much money a pound may be off-putting. So if you charge it by the piece, because it's going to be a small piece anyway, you may still get that pound margin, but not scare someone because the product itself isn't even like half a pound. Just say this Terrace Major's $12. And then as far as market prices, if your product isn't fluctuating in price, and as far as what you're buying, then your retail shop shouldn't fluctuate in price unless you're, also don't write contracts with farmers, because in the slow seasons they'll fuck you.
That's interesting. I've never had to deal anything like that before. Have you had to deal with that, contracts with somebody?
Oh yeah, I as a wholesaler love contracts, because I'll meet these ambitious chefs or these ambitious shops that think that, and I'm not trying to take advantage of them or anything, but they just have like, no, we're absolutely going to do this. We need you to have this available. Well, and one of the most predominant cases for me that made me have this mindset is there was this local shop, who wanted to buy a quarter of beef a week, and with a 3-week dry age quarter, I would have to have my schedule about a month in advance, start hustling and selling the rest of the beef to other outlets, doing this delicate dance.
Yeah, it's a pain.
In the first week, gave it to them. Second week, I show up with the delivery. Their sales didn't go as quite as they said. And they said, oh, yeah, you didn't double check with us. We didn't.
Yeah.
And somehow it was my fault. And I, being the professional, just stood there and nodded my head, calmly got out my phone, pulled up emails and text conversations, and showed them how what they told me would lead me to believe when you say the word weekly, every Monday at this time, from here on out, would indicate that it was already set in stone.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And it's a pain in the ass when you have to deal with something like that, because this forequarter, I already did my cutting day, right? I already pre-shipped it. It's already wrapped up. It's at their facility or at their butcher shop. And now I have to retake it, make sure thermal controls were all correct, and then wait another week and then sell it with an additional of what I'm already trying to sell. It's just, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot worse than just having to take it back and sell it to somebody else.
Yeah. And like other experiences I've done that, there was this rotisserie place I was selling to in West LA that was very adamant about having suckling pigs head on. They were going to get 10 a week, and the second delivery, like, again, we have to make sure we take the proper amount of sucklings to slaughter. We have to bone them out. We have to do all this. And it's a week and a half process before they even get to the facility. And the second round was already dead by the time they realized they couldn't sell the first round.
Oh.
So.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. And that's why I ended up developing an animosity. When I meet a chef or who's extremely arrogant, and I'm just like, I want them to be successful because that means I'm successful. But it also just means, like, listen to your processor, because they've also been in this industry, and they may be like, hey, let's pump the brakes on what you're saying, or or sign a contract.
Yeah, agreed. I think that there's kind of this point this line in the sand that you cross when you go from being a hopeful and being really enthusiastic and not really knowing the business of something, but letting passion guide you through it. And then you like cross this line where, like, all of the magic is gone, and the reality of a situation, and how to fucking make money doing it.
Yeah.
And it's never nearly as much fun as you think it's going to be, but it's also way more satisfying because it's solid.
Yeah. Well, we got way off on that answer, but
we sure did.
That's the luxury of the meat block, is there is no script.
That's true.
Okay, here's one. At have knives, keep sharp. I work in a retail setting. Whole Foods. What's the key questions you would ask a meat cutter who's being interviewed? Their experience. Can't put them on the block for them to show me the skills, but I need to interview them for our team. Oh, before they put them on the block to show the skills, they need to do an interview to see if they mesh with the team, I guess.
Sure. Oh, geez, man. That's so weird, because all the people that I've hired this year, not a single one of them have had experience in not only meat cutting, but any food service at all, which is fucking crazy. Because teaching somebody food safety instinct is so hard, when it's not second nature to you. So I guess I'd probably ask about their experience in food production in general, first of all, because I really want to know if they understand cleanliness and hygiene and SSOPs and things of that nature. But this is for retail, so I guess I wouldn't ask anything about HACCP knowledge, but I always ask questions about their personality because it's more important for me to find somebody that can work with my team than somebody who's got all the skill in the world. I've worked with people that were really good that were just total jabronis and couldn't work with the team, so they were totally useless for the most part. They were never productive. And so now I more or less just look for people that are going to be good fits, good team members, cooperative, take direction well, have good attention for detail. So I look into their job past to see if they've had any experience in settings that would kind of foster those skills. And I ask them about their physical capabilities. I mean, the last thing that I ask about is knife skills. Because you could teach somebody, you're going to have to teach somebody how to cut your way anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost exclusively ask questions about their character and their ability to work amongst a group. I know that's kind of general though, but
yeah, I would ask, it's hard to fake lingo, even though like stuff is, even though there's so much of it out there, like as we've talked about in naming episodes, that what you name a cut and what you call something changes region to region. But you could just talk and, what kind of knives you use? Why do you use that kind of knives? Like, what would you do? Say you have a whole chuck roll and you need, which end would you make the roast out of? Which end would you make the steaks out of? What other muscles you could get off a chuck? What could you do with a boxed clod?
mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then also, if the hard thing is like judging people's knife skills, because I really need to see knife in hand to know if someone's good. And I can't teach everyone everything, but if they have just basic dexterity, I could teach them, from there. But if there's people who are just absolutely terrible with a knife.
Yeah, there are.
But
even people with experience.
Yeah. But what I look for now more than anything is just, can I get along with this person for 8 hours?
Yeah.
If they fall short of my expectations, I'll just pick up the slack.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure.
All right. What other questions we got?
Okay, that's a horror story. I've got that one question about the L word.
Oh, listeria?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, I could read the question.
Okay.
So, this guy asks, or says, I work at a USDA inspected meat processor. We have some items, some products available to our customers that are ready to eat, such as hams and snack sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Once a month, as per our HACCP plan, we have to do a listeria test where we swab 4 items in the immediate processing area. In the morning, on ham day, as we call it, I get there early, I use soap, and I wash down the walls, all the tabletops, the table legs, my knife, my saw parts, the scale, everything involved as a food contact surface. Last week, I did all of those things, swabbed confidently, and sent my test out.
Yeah.
One of them, the knife, returned presumptive positive.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean 100% positive for LM, as a side note, but presumptive positive. He said, with my current routine, I'm wondering where this listeria keeps coming from and what I can do to prevent it better.
How many times has this happened for a presumptive positive?
Well, I asked a few questions, so I have some answers to probably most of the questions you'll ask. How many times has this happened? This happened. I talked to this guy extensively earlier, so this happened a few times several months ago in a row. But that was before he worked there.
Yeah.
And after he started, he said that they haven't had one since, and this is the first one.
Okay. So on the knife, so I do presumption positive isn't always positive just for our listeners. It just means that there's plate activity. It just means that there's more activity than usual, and it doesn't mean listeria. It could be a number of things. I've had one come back like that on a glove because I'm a dick and would swab my employees' gloves. And just in the years I've been doing this, I've only had one happen like that. But also, listeria, it's a bitch. It travels. It could live on dust. It could travel through the wind. 40% of people's shoes in America have listeria on them. So that's why it's important to have your foot baths.
Foot bath, yeah.
Clean out your coolers often. Clean out your coils. Don't use your RTE cooling cooler for any other product besides fully cooked. Don't use it as a staging cooler to house your raw product before it goes into your smoker.
Let's talk about the cooling coils for a second.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is something that I hadn't thought of when I talked to him. When you've got your condenser, on the top of your shop, and you can see dust in the pan of it, I mean, the chances are it's shooting out dust overnight.
But that's a closed system because your coils on your roof, that's help keeping the Freon cold, which is...
Well, I'm thinking of the ones in the shop, like on the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like
so how do
your exhaust fans, I guess, going outside.
Yes.
So you should either have exhaust fans that automatically have dampeners that shut when they're not on, or always have them on. Also, wet, nasty environments. If your if your exhaust fans are carrying out steam, and then particles get stuck to that condensation on those as well.
Yeah, so true.
And then also your floor drains. A lot of places that do raw processing and RTE will have separate drainage systems. So
really,
yeah. So pathogens don't travel through the drains to get into your finished product room. The places I've worked don't have push through cool smoke rooms, which I would love. I would, you spend $250,000 on a smokehouse. You can get one that is a cooler. You push it in there, you set a program. It's going to do its cook and cool all in the same box. And then instead of coming out the front door back into your room that you pushed it in, it's going to go into a different room to be packaged. That's one way to help prevent that, but that's also a very expensive. And also you're going to need a completely new building to do that.
Yeah, totally. See, I was asking him about a setup, and he was telling me that they process the RTE in the same room as the raw product. They just start the day that way.
They just started doing RTE?
Yeah, and then move to raw.
Yeah, so I would absolutely make sure that you have your cleaning cycle documented, not only your pre-op and your operationals, but your actual end-of-the-day cleaning, that it is sanitized. Also, sanitize before you start in the day. Just before, after your pre-op, make sure everything is sanitized. It's always good to have mixing stations of sanitizer, so you just come straight out of the hose and just be liberal with it. And don't use wood handle knives. Don't use knives with a bunch of grooves in them. Have your employees walk through a foot bath that and your sanitizer and your mixing stations, all this, they should be traded once a week. And then when your employees wash their hands, they sing the happy birthday song or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star twice in their head. You don't want them to do it out loud. That'd be fucking obnoxious. And then they put on their gloves, their nitros, and then put hand sanitizer on top of those. That's what we do in our RTE.
Really?
Yeah, we make sure that the gloves themselves are additionally sanitized, because you think about that, you have one box of gloves that lasts you, 3 days? And that's gloves are kept in a porous cardboard box that are exposed to that change in humidity, change in from cleaning. It could drop on the ground. We have no idea what happened to these gloves during the process, the shipping and receiving process. And also, if you have all your cryo bags, don't store them in the room. Have a dry storage for them to help prevent something like this as well.
This ties into a question that I have. Do you mind if I jump in and ask one?
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick. It's about the dry room. So in the place where I work, and this will be useful to this listener as well. Where I work, I've got a dry room that I don't think has been fully cleaned and sanitized, top to bottom, in probably a couple years.
Yeah.
And while we keep it clean, it hasn't been totally douched out and totally sanitized. And I honestly don't think that the condensers in the top of our room, or maybe the room has been in its entirety. We're on a farm. We have farmhands walking through the room all the time. And I'm just, what's your advice for sanitizing an entire area, and is that necessary?
So we do weekly GMPs. We have we have daily pre-ops, but we have a GMP sheet, good manufacturing practices, where we'll check off. One will be like, wipe down all handles, wipe down the handrail on the stairs, clean the spice room, clean dry storage. So once a week, and it's just a laminated piece of paper with that week's date on it. And when we have free time, which is sometimes hard to find in this industry, we'll clean those items. And then usually later in the weeks on Fridays, we have free time to do that as well.
Okay.
Because smoking schedules and things like that. And then once you build that into your routine, that's just your routine. It's not like, when you get to this, it's just, we're doing this.
No, when you guys clean your dry room, are you like completely unloading your Metro rack and sanitizing that whole thing, like scrubbing and sanitizing that whole thing?
No.
Or have you done that like once, one good time?
Yeah, so we'll do that maybe once every few months. But like our dry room, so like all of our bags aren't kept in the cardboard that they came in. They're kept in storage containers like you get from like the storage store or something like that. And they're all labeled with what size they are. We don't put bags that have been taken out of that container back in once they enter processing, because then they're contaminated.
So where do those stay at the end of the day?
We'll maybe put them in refrigeration if they're for raw, but like we'll never do that. We'll just pitch them. We just count out how many we're going to need. And we count them by weight. We say like, we're most likely going to pack this many, throw them on a scale, divide it, and that's how we do it. And then even when we're labeling, because we do a lot of pre-labeling, we wear gloves, make sure that we all have our proper PPE, and practicing good sanitary procedures in that dry room. But yeah, our whole plan, our bathrooms, everything like that, we do once a week. As far as like farmhands coming through, it all depends how good you are with your inspector. Because sometimes management or owners don't know what's best for the company. So you may, and if people aren't listening to you, and people find that difficult sometimes, you could indicate, and as much as I pain to say this, to your inspector to give you an NR for something along those lines. Because if there's nothing else is going to fail, like work, or you could be like, hey, you can't do that because it's against our food safety program. Like, there's no consequences. Then they're going to be like, he doesn't care or something like that. You'd be like, hey, next time you see this, like, I'm really trying to make a good quality, wholesome product. yell at him or be like, look, or something like that.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another thing, that's a really great point. Another thing that I've been thinking about is like stricter boot control.
Yeah.
Like you have your washable boots, you keep them here, like no like cloth tennis shoes and shit like that. Like you have something that's washable and sanitizable.
Yeah. And also just know that if you require washable boots, you may have to pay for them.
Interesting.
So, because it would be considered a uniform at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. But sanitize everything before use. If you have a knife with a bunch of divots in it and a bunch of porous material, pitch it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sanitize your gloves.
Okay.
And all that fun stuff to help. Listeria sucks. If you get a positive on a listeria test, like a legit positive, it's certainly going to be a recall until you had a negative. And you're also going to have to do so much validation studies and so much extra work, and the recall alone may shut your plant down permanently.
Well, at Pizza Taco 69, there's the answer to your question. I hope it doesn't turn out that way for you.
Yeah. All right. I sent you some other questions, David.
Hey, guys. I'm a caterer in Nashville, and I want to become more knowledgeable in butchering, but don't have time to apprentice anywhere. Are there any books or videos that you'd recommend getting? Thanks. From Sean. Books.
Buy my book. No. The Critic.
Books. Videos. How about videos?
Videos are more intuitive. I've probably read.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic, so I find no value in books except for warmth.
Yeah.
Like
I feel the same way about videos. You could see so much more. You could see the details that they're trying to describe.
Yeah. That books are great for. I love audiobooks, but that certainly isn't going to help you be a better cutter. Maybe. Well, then again, no, don't because maybe this podcast is audio, and maybe it'll make you be a better cutter. But books is so visual, and if it's the best butcher books that I've looked through as a butcher, still don't really make sense to me.
Yeah, understood. Same here. And I've been hopeful. I bought some in the past thinking that it was really going to give me a leg up, and that was not the case.
Yeah. And if I were to write a book, it would be autobiographical, and you would probably get nothing out of it.
Yeah, I think it would be really difficult to write a butchery book, but recipe books work.
Yeah. But yeah, just videos. I'm working on making some visual content in the future. And then, there's some people out there with good videos.
Mm-hmm.
Don't Facebook groups and all that, besides the Meat Block Facebook group, are terrible. Everyone's just terrible on the internet.
Yeah, it's true.
So
a lot of just bad mouthing other people.
Yeah. I don't know. Just it sucks because if you want to do something and you don't have the time to learn it, then not like what's the point, but repetitions and the 10,000 hour rule is what made me say I'm a butcher.
Yeah, there's no fast track.
Yeah.
You could work on some cut recognition, but the path to getting to that cut, there's no fast way.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've got another one here. This one. Who's this from? I can't see who it's from, but they ask, I've got a question. What's the ideal length of time for hanging a beef? From what I've read, after 14 days, it isn't going to be any more tender. It's just going to dry out and get a stronger flavor. And from my own experience, the extra trimming isn't worth it. I remember on a previous podcast, you guys were talking about grass-finished beef hanging for 3 weeks as it wasn't palatable hung for a shorter time. Just wondering what your thoughts are on the subject. And there's a second note there, and it says the Valentine's Day episode had me LOLing.
Lols.
Yeah.
Well, I wish the Valentine's Day episode had other people LOLing, because according to our analytics...
Y'all didn't like it.
Yeah, people turned it off prematurely, maybe because they were finished already. But go back and listen to that, because it was real fun, and it was real awkward. And I know my parents listened to it.
Oh, good. Mine did not.
Yeah. My parents listen to every episode, so just keep that in mind in everything I say. Also, my in-laws listen to every episode.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
that's good to know.
First off, I want to say that grass-fed beef can be palatable without hanging it for 21 days. It's just that was the circumstances with that made that beef better, and it made it delicious. So I don't want to make people think that all grass-fed needs to be hanged for so long.
That beef, though, was better. Yeah, it really was.
Mm-hmm. And I stick by the 21 days. That 14 days, I would say, you could still get proteins denuded after that and still make it tender. But after 21 days, more or less, you're going to be dealing with flavor profiles.
Yeah, if there's any kind of fat coverage, I guess. I have a really hard time hanging some burned up milkers more than 7 days.
Oh, yeah, that they get.
Of course, that goes without saying, I'm sure.
Yeah. Also, why would you?
Or people that don't finish their beef,
Yeah.
I've got some grass-fed people around here that just don't finish it all, and they just look terrible.
Yeah.
But let's see. Somebody just asked me a question. It says, this is from Just a Meat Cutter. Hello again. A question that I've had for a while, and one that no one has had a good answer for, is this. Sometimes, in boxed beef cutting, commodity sirloin tip / knuckles smell awful. Often one can let them air out for a minute, but sometimes you have to remove a whole layer of the knuckle, or worse, just discard the whole subprimal. What are your thoughts on why this happens? I don't know. I mean, is it possible that maybe there's some synovial fluid still on it somehow that's just like rotting in the bag quicker than the meat?
I think it's sour bone, honestly.
Sour bone?
Yeah. That when beef, the knuckle is part of the front round area, even though it's on subprimal, it's the thigh, the top thigh, the beef. And behind that is the round, and then you have the femur running through it, and that's the thickest part of the whole animal. So when you work with whole carcass, sometimes you're going to see the knuckle poked through the kneecap, or at the bottom of the knuckle poked through to the head of the femur bone at the tenderloin. And that is to help cold air penetrate it so it could cool down faster. If you don't do that, you're going to get what's called sour bone, or what I've called it may be called wiggity waggity or something weird wherever you are. I don't know. But it has that very strong sulfurous fart smell. And it won't even be a cryobacked when I smell it. It is a whole carcass. And it really comes to life in the grinder. When that portion of meat gets passed through the grinder, and it just smells like a sulfur fart. It smells like you're hanging out with some crazy vegans.
Egg salad.
Yeah.
Sort of smell. Yeah.
So that's what I think it may be. I could be wrong. So I got a question at Jamie J. Waldron. Maybe that's your name. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
No, Jamie Waldron. Yeah. Hey, Jamie.
I'd be interested in hearing a show about your management styles, how you something, how you are a management. You've worked with who's done good / bad styles, etc. Love the show. Keep it up.
Thanks, Jamie.
So, right now I work with a small staff, and my goal in management is just to remind them of all that needs to get done at the end of the day. And I'm also a working manager. I don't walk around with a clipboard or anything like that. And I don't know. I've worked with managers like that where it's been said that, their whole thing is like, I want people to feel like if they don't do something correctly that I'm disappointed, like they would feel bad. And then I worked with some that are more like, I want people to fear me and not, so they don't do something bad, that they're afraid of the repercussions or whatever. I don't think I don't think either of those are right. Work is work. Work sucks sometimes. Work is fun sometimes. There's a happy medium. You don't want to be best friends. You also don't want your staff to hate you. You have to read the room. Yeah, I don't want to say you have to be strict, because you want to be in a position where you don't have to be strict. And also, like, you're working with fucking adults, not children. So, and it also depends on the people you're working with. I've worked with people that needed very little guidance, that they, were intuitive. And then I work with people still to this day that every day is like a new day for them. They forget what they did the day before.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, David, what are your thoughts?
I tend to be a bit of a micromanager. I think I'm kind of, or I have been recently. I've been in this position where I've had to hire a totally new crew. They all started basically at the same time, and none of them have worked in food production at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a working manager, so I am actually the only meat cutter. I'm training a meat cutter from the beginning right now, as well as a packager, a value-added person.
Yeah.
It's been really stressful, and like my production is down because of all of the fires I constantly have to put out and instruction that I have to give. And I'm happy to, and I love teaching people things, and I have a lot of patience for it. But in this industry, the smallest mistakes can turn out really huge. A small mistake can cost a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so it's been a frustrating process. And so I found myself resorting sometimes to a bit of micromanagement and checking in with a frequency that I don't prefer, just to make sure that the train is staying on the track, trying to catch little things. And I would say probably more than 50% of the time, I catch something.
Yeah. That's the thing, like all the like big things where like a mistake could fuck you over. I put that burden on myself. I do all the direct ops. I do all the heat and cools. I do all those things, so I just know that it gets done. It took me a long time to let go of the control of portioning sodium nitrate. I believe that my staff could confidently do that without poisoning people. But yeah, because we're dealing with food safety, and it's a delicate dance. I work with one guy that he's been there for a very long time, and I will never allow him to do something that involves calibration or paperwork or something like that.
Math in general.
Yeah, and I play to his strengths. He's good at doing some things. He's not good at doing others. a lot of people want to rotate positions and things like that to avoid people being stagnant. I can that would work in a bigger facility. In smaller facilities, it's kind of like everyone needs to get the job done. Tell people my business card should say production manager / janitorial staff, because I will clean the toilets. I will help package that where there's no job that, one, I haven't done, and that I do them all when needed, Certain jobs that I hate doing. But
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about, David?
Not really.
All right.
I'm building fence this weekend. That's exciting.
That's not exciting, David.
What's not exciting is that I staked out 430 feet of fence and then had a better idea.
That sucks.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it for this week's episode of the Meat Block. And David, I'll let you do the outro since you never do.
Oh. Wait, what is it? Do you, like just the slogan?
You could say whatever.
Oh, all right. Send us more questions, but even more importantly, send us horror stories.
Absolutely.
And until next time, keep your knives sharp and live in the margin.
Well, he went down to Watertown expecting all his sin to be washed clean. He killed a man in Birmingham and he jumped the first train south to New Orleans. With a C note from a dead man's coat, pearl-handled pistol smoking steel. He saw a shadow cross his path, in its wake he felt a dead man's chill. Well, down by the Mississippi, his train stopped on a dime. And into that muddy river he threw his gun as though it might free him from his crime. In the absinthe bar on Bourbon Street, he heard a foreign voice call his name. He said, "Son, I see your weary eyes, and it looks to me like you're running from your shame. Don't go down to Watertown expecting all your sin to be washed clean."
All right, meatheads, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Meat Block Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. It was good to talk to David. Even though David, Ryan, and myself do a weekly show, we seldom actually talk. It's more that we get audio pieces, and it's all through text and things of that nature and social media, but it was good to hear his voice. Move back to Washington. Anyway, if you want to get a hold of us here at the Meat Block, you could email us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com. You could tweet us at themeatblockpod. You could Instagram us at themeatblock, and also Facebook, the Meat Block Podcast group. And if you're a member of that group, tag a friend. I want it to grow more and more. And if you want to get a hold of us individually, David is at A Farm Butcher on Instagram. Ryan, even though he wasn't a part of this episode, he will be certainly in future episodes. He is at Gather and Break. And I am at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're looking for a way to help out the show, literally, say this all the time. Review us on iTunes and leave a comment. Another way to support us is by using the hashtag #TheMeatBlock and also adding us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Because right now, our sole advertising is you, the listener. That being said, I would like to say thank you to the following people: Adrian, Butcher, Center Cuts, Rocky Red, Let's See, Sebs, Simon, with his beautiful looking shop window. And before I get out of here, I'm going to start trying to do once-a-week video answers for Facebook. I know, why give myself more to do. But if you have a simple question that would be easy to answer, please let me know. And that would be on our Facebook group. Until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.
Quick and cracked him hard, and they drug him right off that stolen mare. Well, then the wither-handed preacher man pushed his way through the crowd. He looked down at the stranger on the ground, held his gut and laughed out loud. Said, I see you met my brother down in Nolens, took his word for true. Well, the man you killed in Birmingham, if you don't know, was the father to us too. So don't go down to Watertown expecting all your sin to be washed clean. They strapped two mighty boulders upon his broken knees. They laughed and kicked and spit on him despite him crying and screaming please. Well, it took 12 men, 3 on each limb, to drag him to the river and throw him in. He never had a prayer as the water baptized and drowned him with his sin. Don't go down to Watertown expecting all your sin to be washed clean. Don't go down to Watertown expecting all your sin to be washed clean. Young man, you're bound to drown in Watertown. Young man, you're bound to drown in Watertown.